Welcome to the B Team podcast, everyone. Riding solo today, by choice, really. Trying a bit of a different format. As you get to November and December, people's social calendars fill up. So I'm hoping to talk about two particular big topics over the last 2 weeks today. But first, peep the park cricket shirt. How good is this? So for those that don't know, we were creating a docuseries following our park cricket team over the last 2 years. Well, followed a season, but been creating it over the last 2 years. Some merch finally out there, so pretty cool that we have all our teams, all the players in our teams really represented on our shirt, which is pretty cool. Self-designed, self-made, park cricket baby. Two great topics today, guys. Elon Musk and Twitter, always a favorite, crowd favorite. And the Australian cricket team. What is going on with the Australian cricket team? It's just not the same when world cricket is not dominated by the Australian cricket team. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's kick off with Elon Musk and Twitter. So Elon Musk is obviously in charge of Twitter now, which happened very quickly after a long time in a stalemate. And so what we understand of this is Elon Musk, obviously people are like, oh, he's trying to pull out of the deal, markets are collapsing, so he's finding excuses, bots, etc. Well, not really. Elon Musk probably did see that the value was quickly dwindling, but he was also during this point in discussions with the original founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, having a couple of conversations with him, still thinking about taking over Twitter. And basically on the 26th of October, it all finalized that Elon entered Twitter offices with a sink. And he put up a Twitter post basically to show the fact that he's now in charge of Twitter and to say, let that sink in. Brilliant. Brilliant comedy. Love the meme-worthy material that came out of it as well. But to give you a bit of a idea of what happened post that, Elon has basically been talking to Jack Dorsey throughout the scenes, behind the scenes. Elon's talking to Jack Dorsey. Jack is coordinating conversations with him and Parag Agarwal, who was the current CEO. Now, Parag is a super technical guy. He's a ex-software engineer, I think, started at Twitter, quickly elevated himself to become the chief technology officer. Super smart guy, super brilliant. When Jack Dorsey leaves, puts Parag in charge, obviously because of his technical capabilities, but he understands the product, Twitter product, really well from a technical perspective. Obviously, everything that went through over the last 2 years, we won't talk about, but Jack's hope was that Parag and Elon could work together. But really, they're two different types of minds, and so there were lots of clashes. Now, if you look at these secret emails and texts between Elon and Parag, Elon and Jack, they're brilliant, to be honest. Internal tech emails on Twitter, if you haven't followed them, super brilliant. So it all starts pretty cordially. Elon is basically telling Parag, I've got a bunch of ideas. Let me know if I'm going too hard here. I just want Twitter to be amazing. Parag says, yeah, man, I want to hear all the ideas. I'll tell you which ones we'll make progress on, etc. This is when Elon was, he had a board seat. And Elon's like, look, I'm a technical dude. I like understanding the code base. This will help me understand, if my suggestions are dumb or not. I wrote software, etc., etc. And Parag's like, listen, mate, I don't know if you've got Wikipedia, but I used to be the CTO of Twitter, and I've been in our code base for a long time. So I can answer any of your questions. And Elon's like, perfect. I operate better with engineers anyway than with program managers, MBA types of people. Oh, Elon Musk throwing some shade at MBA types of people. And Parag's like, yeah, in our next conversation, talk to me like an engineer and we can have a better conversation. So it all is pretty amicable at that stage where Elon and, Parag are kind of getting along and talking about ideas and stuff like that. Now, pre this, Elon and Jack have been talking, and Elon and Jack are talking about why Twitter needs to be revamped, why they need a new platform, etc. why, some of the algorithms should be open source. People should be able to understand why people are being censored, et cetera, et cetera. And so they've got all these ideas that they're throwing around. Jack believes Elon being on the board is the best decision. It's actually going to further the product, a baby that he cares deeply about. But then it all kind of hits the fan very quickly because Elon starts going rogue in terms of tweeting things about Twitter. Now, as he's tweeting things about Twitter, bear in mind that he's now the board member. He's got a position of power within Twitter. And so he's tweeting things that could be detrimental to their product. But all he's doing is trying to open conversation, trying to understand the problems a bit more from the people that use it. And so he's tweeting things like, is Twitter dying? Yada, yada, yada. Has Twitter lost free speech, et cetera, et cetera. And so as he's doing this, now in a position of power, Parag, the CEO, messages him and he says, look, man, you're free to tweet, is Twitter dying or anything else, but it's my responsibility to tell you that it's not helping me make Twitter better in the current context. Next time we speak, I'd like to provide you perspective on the level of internal distraction right now that this is doing and how it's hurting our ability to work, et cetera, which is, kind of fair. It's fair, but how Parag says it, especially towards the end, can probably word that a bit better and diplomatically, but it's probably going to be on deaf ears with Elon anyway. Anyway, Elon's response, best. Elon says, not thanks, or I refute what you say. He says, what did you get done this week? Brilliant. Elon says, I'm not joining the board. This is a waste of time. I'll make an offer to make Twitter private. And then, it just escalates from there, basically. Escalates from there. Jack gets involved. Jack says, hey, man, I want to make sure Parag is doing everything possible to build towards your goals until close. He's really good at getting things done. Elon says, yeah, sure. Jack says, when's best for you? They try and organize a time and they obviously have a conversation and it doesn't work out. I guess over that conversation, it's very clear to Jack that they can't work together. Elon and Parag can't work together. And it's clear to him that there needs to be a new direction of where Twitter is heading. Either they go down with Parag or either Elon takes over with his vision. So 26th of October, Elon enters with a sync into Twitter's head office. 28th of October, 2 days later, Elon begins his Twitter reign by sacking the CEO, Parag Agrawal, sacking the CFO, and sacking the legal affairs and policy chief. And really, he then starts to put his brand and his ideas onto the product of Twitter. And so 29th of October, a day later, he decides to throw out a monthly subscription for people to keep their blue check mark. He's obviously got his views on that. He announces that he's going to form a content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints, which is pretty different, but pretty cool. But the $20 a month is the one that gets people talking because they're like, oh man, now we have to pay $20 to keep our blue check. And obviously, a lot of people get triggered on that, but he's obviously got his vision around it. And in order to do this and implement the subscription, he tells all his employees that they need to meet this deadline of November 7th to implement this, or else they'll be sacked. Now, again, this is hearsay, might not be true, might be true. Who knows? And so in the background of all of this, as he's making these decisions, it's rumored that he's got a bit of a war room. Now, part of this war room is Jason Kalakakis. I don't know if I'm saying it right. David Sachs, part of the Elon podcast, if you hear them. But it's basically his connection from the PayPal Mafia days. He's got this trusted group of advisors, even though they're not his board. It's just a bunch of advisors that he sounds ideas from. And it's pretty cool, actually. I'm sure many of you guys have your own trusted war room advisors. Pretty cool that he's got that. He chucks on a couple of polls and ideas. He says, bring back Vines, vote yes or vote no. 5 million people voted yes, 70%. Vines, for people that were there back in the day, that's what kicked off TikTok, basically. Short form video, lots of goofy content, dances, etc. A lot of people then refute, paying $20 a month to keep their blue checks. People are like, stuff that, you should be paying us, Elon. And Elon's like, look, we've got a vision. We need to implement that. We need to pay the bill somehow. We can't rely entirely on advisors. And then he says, how about $8? And so now that's what's stuck. $8 is where it's at. And then on the 4th of November, he said he lays off about half of Twitter's employees. So about 3,700 jobs, they reckon. And he says they had no choice to make the cuts because the company was losing $4 million a day. And then on the 5th of November, they plan to release the $8 monthly Twitter subscription with the blue check mark. But then the day after that, they take that back and they say, actually, it's probably better for us to do this after Tuesday's midterm election. So that's what's kind of happening now. And then, there's a bit of stuff on the news now about them recalling fired workers to come back because some of them were done by mistake and they realize the enormity of some of the tasks that they have ahead of them. So obviously not great press, not great empathy shown by Musk, but he's obviously a visionary. He gets stuff done in whatever attractive or unattractive way that is. I don't know where you're at with Elon Musk, but I was reading an article that referenced a book called The Corporate Turnaround by Donald Bibo. I think it's a book in the 1980s, and it talks about two types of management styles and a particular type of management style that's needed to turn things around very quickly. I'm just going to quote the book. So it says, there is a tremendous difference between turnarounds and custodial management. You have to have the star system in a turnaround. That requires the big egotist, the guy who is willing to take the big risk. He needs a superabundance of confidence. He can take somebody else's mess and do the alchemy that's necessary. To do that, he has to be insensitive to people. After the turnaround is achieved, the star is gone because he can't live with the board on a day-to-day custodial basis. He's too controversial, argues too much, wants too much, demands too much. He's a pain in the butt. Good custodial managers are good vanilla managers. They stay in there, they do what has to be done, they run the business like it's supposed to be run. They watch the margin, supervise the marketing, take care. Custodial guys are clearly a different breed. If they make a major mistake or if they don't recognize the trends in the business, things will get rotten at the core, and then they will eventually lose the business. It's a pretty cool, not cool, but it's an interesting idea because it shows that, you kind of need sometimes that egotistical, maniac, crazy leader to sometimes get things done. And often it is at the cost of people and at the cost of empathy and at the cost of, human emotion. But really, this leader is doing whatever they can for the success of this product at all costs. Now, some might argue that's dangerous, but I think there is a place for that. And obviously, we'll have the next couple of months to see how well Twitter evolves and if Elon Musk is exactly what they needed, particularly as Twitter are competing, with your big media companies like TikToks, your Facebooks, your Instagrams. So Twitter really is trying to make a resurgence in that aspect. And so in summary, Musk is probably what Twitter needs right now. Do they need more empathy and do they need leaders that'll bring that in the future? Probably, maybe, but remains to be seen what Musk will do. And, he's been able to create crazy things in the past in the companies that he's been a part of. So looking forward to seeing what that's going to hold. We go from someone who is like Elon Musk, that is super, some might say emotionless, to now the Australian cricket team, which almost have too much emotion in them. And that begs to raise the question, what is wrong with Australian cricket? Now, I grew up in the era following Australian cricket, supporting Australian cricket, where they were tough, aggressive, and sure, there's all these scandals that have come out, about them playing too tough and win at all costs mentality. And, I agree there was an inherent problem that needed to be addressed there, but the DNA of their cricket has always been tough, ruthless, relentless, always having a crack. It seems like they've just lost that a bit. And, some of the comments from the greats have actually made me start thinking about, is this an actual problem with Australian cricket at the moment? So Michael Clark comes out and says, Australia's playing defensive. He says, I think Australians in general on the biggest stage, under the most amount of pressure, always put it on the line and always have a crack. He says, Australians are never scared to lose. But he said as well that they picked an aggressive 11 in this World Cup squad, but played very defensively. And I couldn't agree more. Like, you watch them playing, they almost feel like they've lost that aggressive spark and brand of cricket. So it was very weird and un-Australian, like you said. Shane Watson comes out and says they played with no intensity. And then you hear Glenn Maxwell, who's part of the squad, and they talk to him about how do you feel about getting knocked out, in a home tournament in the group stages. And he says, you know what, cricket never stops. You don't get time to 12. When you retire, you think back to, it would have been nice to win that, but it doesn't mean anything, etc., etc. Like, mate, even the response of a player showed no emotion, which was super weird. And anyway, I know like he's meant to control emotions and things like that, but you'd be gutted if you're losing a home tournament, particularly fans and supporters buying tickets for semi-finals, finals, hoping and almost thinking Aussies are guaranteed to make the semis at least. So just a bit weird. And then Aaron Finch coming out before the tournament starting and saying the Aussies are fatigued and tired. Like, all right, mate, way to set yourself up with a couple of excuses, which is something that not many people would be brave enough to say. But it just seemed weird that he said that. And the other problem that many supporters and some of our people on TikTok have said as well, Aaron Finch was a part of the problem, not just him saying that they're fatigued and tired, but his form, his lackluster kind of performances in the field and with the bat. It's almost like, he had a Taylor Swift moment.
It's me.
Hi.
I'm the problem, it's me.
Michael Vaughan obviously coming in, rubbing some salt in the wound, saying Australians are no longer ruthless and they seem like the nice team to play against. Come on, guys, we don't want to be New Zealand. New Zealand are the nice team to play against. Like, kind of have two New Zealands. And a lot of people are saying that it's because of the coaching style. So Andrew McDonald, who's now coaching, he's a bit of a nice guy. Whereas the previous era, it was Justin Langer, and he's, a fighter, ruthless, kind of grit the teeth and just get it done kind of personality, but also batsman. And so you kind of see the coaching styles and embed in how these players play their cricket, which is kind of cool to see. Obviously not cool if you're an Australian supporter, but cool to see the DNA of those coaches on their teams. And the other thing is the amount of input the players have had on the coach and on other decisions has just probably lost a lot of the public. Now, I don't know if this is media run, but, they said that Justin Langer got kicked out because Paddy Cummins and the crew didn't get along with him. And they appointed McDonald, and who really got the job. He's obviously a qualified coach and he's great at what he does, but it was a popular play decision because he was in the system, he was in the ranks. And really, you got to start thinking, as a coach, do you really want to be their leader and their coach, or do you want to be their mate? And he seems like a bit of their mate at the moment. You look at some of the great coaches in world football, like Jurgen Klopp, brilliant guy. You can see he gets along with his players off the field, hugs, kisses, but the players are genuinely scared of him. Like, you can see him yelling at them. There's a real fight to earn his respect, and to do the job for him. And I feel like that's just not there at the moment. It's just, there's 2 points. What's wrong with Australian cricket? Are Aussies done with the soft nature of, Australia's playing style at the moment? Is there a lack of stars? Are the supporters over the political and commercial stances taken by players over their ability to actually dominate in the sport? And so that's probably where people are voting with their feet. And then you look at the Australian cricket team, they're not really representative of the best big bash players. Like, you look at India's India's international team, they've got the best IPL players in their team. You look at Pakistan's PSL teams, they've got the best PSL players in their team. But the Australian international team, you look at them and a lot of these players don't even really play a full season of BBL. And you start to think, well, what's the point of the BBL if they're not representing you on the world's biggest stage? And the final point is the Australian public. They're basically voting with their feet. People hardly turned up to games. Stadiums went full for Australian games. Granted, they're playing some of the lower ranked teams, but you'd still be wanting for a World Cup stadiums to be near full. And it makes you think, there's three glaring issues. No sports during this October, November time, really. Footy season's out. So Aussies are still not turning up to the sports, to the World Cup. So is there an issue there? Are Aussies done with the soft nature of, the Australian cricket team's playing style? Are they done with the lack of stars? And so there's no real draw card for them to come and watch the game. Or are the supporters, over the political and commercial stances taken by the players? Is that actually having an effect on why people are not turning up to the cricket? And there's all worthy things to think about. And I hope Cricket Australia actually grapples over that over the next couple of months, because this Cricket World Cup, 2020 Cricket World Cup, I was a big hater of the 2020 Cricket World Cup. I'm a hater of 2020 at the best of times, but I've watched a lot of games and I really enjoyed this World Cup. It's probably one of the World Cups I've enjoyed the most. And it's just been a shame to see that, Australian cricket firstly hasn't succeeded as well as they would have liked, but the crowds have actually been great for a lot of the subcontinent teams, but down for a lot of the home teams. And so, it makes you think, is there a shift in terms of what Aussies look for in summer sports? I just wanted to finish off, just rounding out this whole Twitter, Elon Musk, and Australian cricket team saga, by a little post by Social Capital Company, run by Chamath, another All In podcast member. And basically he talks about how to succeed, companies and people have been super obsessed with succeeding and doing well. They haven't let other things distract them. And so it says this, it's really cool. It says, we may never know if Tom Brady or Michael Jordan would have become the best at what they do if they only practiced 4 days a week or refused to play unless teammates met arbitrary designations of height, weight, or likability. But we do know the counterfactual. They were obsessed with winning. They were ruthless with their regimen, and their insane expectations elevated everyone around them. The result? Undisputed goats of their respective crafts. In theory, every company starts with the same potential, but few actually achieve it. Why? Because doing so requires the founder to choose to be obsessed with what their customers want and need, even when doing so will make some of those around them uncomfortable. Ultimately, it's up to each founder and board of directors to decide what their company stands for, and even more importantly, what it doesn't stand for. Without this clarity, you will only achieve a shadow of your potential. My 2 cents, take the uncomfortable path and choose to be a goat. So that's what they're doing. Elon Musk is trying to make Twitter the GOAT social platform. Can the Australian cricket team go back to the top and become the greatest of all time? We'll see. Let us know what you think. Let us know what our next conversation points should be, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the B Team podcast. Cheers.